I remember the day and the time. It was the day of my 35th birthday, and the time was 5:26 a.m. I know this because I saw the clock when I got up and turned off the alarm clock. I looked over at Leslie, who stayed in bed for another hour, and saw something I hadn't noticed before. Her nightgown had slid down, and I saw the love bite, the little badge, on the underside of her left breast. And I wasn't the one who'd put it there. I had occasionally applied love bites to my wife, so I knew how long it usually took for them to disappear, and that told me that the bite on her breast had been applied recently. My wife was cheating on me. Sitting on the edge of the bed and looking at the mark on her breasts, I thought back to how long ago she had done it, but couldn't think of anything. I hadn't noticed any lack of affection on her part, nor any change in her behavior. True, there was one small change, though. She was usually all over me when I came home from my frequent business trips. But when I'd returned the day before, she hadn't. She said she really wished she could. But it was that time of the month. Then she told me that I just accepted it as a fact of life. But looking at that obscene thing on her left breast, I had to ask myself if she was really on the rag or just using it as an excuse not to get naked with me. Like most men, I didn't follow my wife's cycle. I just kept going until she said, "Sorry, honey, but I'm out of commission for a while." Well, I thought, getting out of bed and heading for the bathroom. At least now I know why she didn't pick up the phone when I called her those 2 nights I spent in Chicago. She was busy with her lover or wasn't brave enough to walk over and pick up the phone when he was in bed with her. That's when I started thinking about what I should do. An immediate confrontation was out of the question. I wanted to know who, where, and how often, and I obviously couldn't trust her to tell me and be truthful. Confrontation would only lead to her denying everything and making excuses about the tag being in place and then stopping or slowing down. Number no confrontation until I have all the facts. And then? Good question, I thought. A damn good question. Leslie and I went back to middle school. We were the same age, so we were in the same classes. Her last name was Taylor, and mine was Talbot, and in first grade, because teachers usually seated students in alphabetical order, we ended up next to each other. Because of the alphabetical order, we often ended up together, such as in 7th grade when we were given dance lessons during physical education, and Leslie became my partner. In 8th grade, we had a teacher who did a lot of class projects, and she always put us into groups. Naturally, she did it in alphabetical order, so that's when Leslie and I usually ended up together. This alphabetical closeness had far-reaching consequences that I didn't realize until much later. At some point, this closeness led Leslie to believe that we were destined to be together, that I was meant to be her boyfriend. Girls start thinking about things like that earlier than guys do. I wasn't interested in girls until 9th grade, and when I started paying attention to them, Leslie wasn't among them. The first girl who made my heart beat faster was Pauline French. I dated her twice before she started turning me down when I asked her out. I was crushed, just for 2 weeks, and then I became infatuated with Nancy Wilde. I had 3 dates with Nancy before she started turning me down when I asked for a date. After Nancy, there were half a dozen others who dated me once or twice, and then never had anything more to do with me. I went into 10th grade thinking I had bad body odor and very bad breath. I couldn't understand it because I took regular baths and brushed my teeth 2 or 3 times a day. Once a month on Friday night, our school had a dance. Not a prom, just dances designed to help kids learn to socialize and keep them off the streets on Friday nights. You could go to them as a bachelor party and dance with the girls who came alone, or you could bring a date. If you went as a stag, it meant you sucked, and most guys didn't want to be called that. So if they couldn't find a date, they didn't go. It was the 3rd week of 10th grade, and the dance was the next Friday. I was turned down by 4 girls, and I had already decided not to go when Leslie leaned over to me in social studies class and asked me who I would take to the dance. Instead of admitting that I couldn't find a date, I simply said I wasn't planning on going. Then she asked if I would do her a favor. I asked what was up, and she said she wanted to go to the dance, but she wasn't interested in any of the guys who asked her out. "Could you take me with you, Rob?" "I'd really like to go." I'm not sure exactly why, but I guess the constant closeness with Leslie made me look at her like she was a sister or something. Maybe something along the lines of, "You can't see the tree behind the forest." I pulled back and stared at Leslie intently, suddenly wondering why I hadn't been paying attention to her. She was a stunningly beautiful girl. I told her that I would really like to ask her to dance, and that was the end of it. I had a great time at the dance, and when I walked her to the door to take her home, she kissed me. I asked her if she wanted to go to the movies with me on Saturday, and she said yes, and from that moment on, we became a couple. Most people couldn't understand it because Leslie and I were as different as night and day. We were like oil and water, and everyone knows the two don't mix. But somehow we did. I was a quiet, unassuming guy, and my after-school activities were chess club, history club, jazz, and classical music clubs. Leslie, on the other hand, was outgoing, aggressive, and overly successful. She was in cheerleading, played soccer and field hockey. Looking back, I think it was probably about 6 months into our relationship that Leslie started running my life. It was so subtle that I didn't even notice. In fact, I only realized it after I started looking into Leslie's infidelity. It was little things like, "Oh no, Rob, that tie doesn't suit you," and telling me that the hairdresser I'd been going to for years was just messing up my hair. "You need to go to Anton." The biggest thing she did to me in those days was to get me to play sports, any sports. In front of the other girls on the team, i.e., the other cheerleaders, I'll look bad if I have a boyfriend who doesn't play sports. I wanted to please Leslie, so I went to soccer and even made the team and played for the varsity team in 11th and 12th grade. I wasn't good, and I knew it. For one thing, I was too slow. For another thing, at 165 pounds, I didn't have enough muscle to block a beanbag, but I had one advantage: my hands. If the quarterback could pass me the ball, I caught it. I couldn't go anywhere with the ball after I caught it, but I didn't need to. On 3rd and 12, I'd drop back 15 yards, and if Jason could hand me the ball, I'd catch it, get intercepted, but we'd still get a first down. The coverage didn't matter. Let the ball come to me and I would catch it. When soccer was done, I tried basketball, but was too clumsy. I tried baseball, but it didn't work for me. Again, too slow and could never hit the ball. Athletics came to naught, slow again, but then the coach suggested wrestling. Because of my weight, I was put in a class where everyone in that weight was shorter than I was, and my 6 feet 2 inches against their 5 feet 9 inches or 5 feet 10 inches gave me a 4-inch advantage. As a wrestler, I wasn't that good, but good enough to compete. 2 other areas Leslie worked on me in were education and sex. I was going to get a degree in business management and then go on and get an MBA. As we moved into 11th grade, Leslie began to insist on studying computer science. "You don't want to be a scrappy old businessman, honey. Use your fantastic mind to your advantage. Information technology is the wave of the future." By the time I graduated high school, she had managed to talk me into computers. And then there was sex. Thanks to my upbringing, I was convinced that one should abstain until marriage. Leslie didn't like that. It made relationships awkward. All the guys I knew were on a constant hunt for willing girls, and I was struggling to keep Leslie at a distance. We had hot, very hot sex, but every time Leslie's hands wandered, I'd push them away and tell her we had to wait. But I don't want to wait. I'm ready now. I've mentioned before that she was aggressive, haven't I? Saturday, we were at the lake. It was getting dark, and I was lying on a blanket when Leslie came out of the water and lowered herself next to me. "I hope you're not too tired," she said, and then pulled off my swim trunks before I realized what was happening. "I told you I didn't want to wait." It wasn't until I took her to the house that it dawned on me that Leslie wasn't a virgin. She had had experience, and I wondered where she got it, but not enough to ask her. From that day forward, Leslie and I made love every chance we got. There were many other changes, too many to mention here, but by the time we were halfway through our first year of college, Leslie was pretty much running my life. I didn't notice it then, and I didn't really care. Why should I? Everything was going well, so why would I care even if I did notice? I didn't even think about it when someone told me I was being manipulated. It happened at a party at one of the college fraternities. I was sipping a beer when Nancy Wilde came up to me and asked why she never heard from me again. I replied that after turning her down half a dozen times, it was clear to me that she wasn't interested. Well, that's not entirely true, Rob. I was interested, but I was scared, and now I feel like I've been duped. I don't understand. I was told I should stay away from you because you have a social disease. Gonorrhea, I think that's what she said. Who the hell told you that? Your girlfriend. Leslie? How would she know? Even if it's true. I only started seeing her after I stopped seeing you. She said her cousin works in the office of the doctor you go to, and her cousin told her she saw the results of the test you took. I don't know what she said to the other girls that repulsed them, but what she said to me repulsed me. Then, when no one else wanted to date you, she moved in with you. She must really love you for going to all that trouble. I stopped there. She must really love you, and never brought up that conversation with Leslie. In middle school, Leslie asked me if I had thought about us getting married. Did I want it to be big and with a lot of hoopla or small and quiet? This caught me off guard since I hadn't even proposed to her. It wasn't that I didn't love her. It was just that I thought we would always be together and assumed she felt the same way, so I hadn't formalized anything. I thought about her question for a bit and then said that I didn't have any preferences, so I would leave it up to her. Judging by her smile, I decided that was the right answer, and 2 days later she told me that her mom had started working on the planning and Leslie had suggested a date 6 months after graduation, and I said that was fine with me. 3 months before graduation, I started sending out resumes and got a few responses. One evening I was going through them trying to decide which one I wanted to interview, and in what order. When Leslie handed me one, she was reading and said, "Here, dear, this is perfect for you." My attitude was simple. I'm getting ready to graduate and I need a job, and I didn't care who I was going to work for just as long as I worked. I set up an interview with XYZ Corporation, the same one Leslie chose. They proposed to me, I accepted, and the wedding, full-blown, with church and reception, took place in February. Looking back on my life and reflecting on Leslie's infidelity, I was amazed at how much control she had over me, and I didn't even realize it. In my defense, every decision Leslie made for us involved something I didn't care too much about to one degree or another. She chose what kind of house we would buy, what we would furnish it with, what kind of cars we would drive, and so on and so forth. I didn't care because everything she did I didn't need to do. As for the house, all I cared about was the roof over my head. House, condo, or apartment, I didn't care. Cars? As long as it got me where I wanted to go, I didn't care what kind it was. I pretty much turned everything over to Leslie. I worked hard at XYZ and was promoted several times over the years until I became the Information Services Manager and the company's Chief IT Troubleshooter. Because XYZ was a national enterprise with offices in several cities, I traveled an average of 10 days a month. Leslie progressed through her company and eventually reached the position of regional manager, which meant she also had to travel to visit offices in her region. Leslie had some leeway as to when to visit the offices in her region, so she tried to schedule her visits to coincide with when I would be on the road. Admittedly, this wasn't always successful, as my trips were usually related to an IT emergency that had just occurred, but we were still able to spend more time with each other than two people with traveling jobs should. For 16 years, I truly believed I had the perfect wife and the perfect marriage, and it was a real shock to find out I was wrong. I left before Leslie even got out of bed, and that was probably a good thing, because I'm not sure I would have been able to hold myself together if I had to face her that morning. On the way to work, I pondered what I would have to do to figure out who, when, and where. Eventually, I would probably want to find out the reason as well, but that could wait. One thing I did know, however, was that I would need legal help. When I got to work, I pulled out the yellow pages and searched the list of lawyers for someone who specialized in divorce. And while the book was open, I checked private investigators as well. I was already reaching for the phone when it suddenly dawned on me that I couldn't call either the lawyer or the detective right now. I'd have to pay them, and Leslie was handling the family finances, and she'd notice it right away, and then we'd have a confrontation I wasn't ready for. Unless I could find some means that Leslie didn't know about, I'd have to hold off. I needed to get something positive before going to either of them. When I'm sure I can go to the detective, have him set it up, and then go to a lawyer. Then, if Leslie gets caught with expenses and there's a confrontation, I'll be on solid ground. There was no other way out. I had to follow Leslie and spy on her until she gave me something concrete. Notice I never mentioned anywhere about sitting down and trying to talk things out and maybe find a way to repair the marriage. No, sir, that's not going to happen. She was either mine or she wasn't, and if she wasn't, she was gone. But I was lucky. At 11 in the morning, I got a call from Leslie. One of her offices had been broken into, she had a plane to catch, and she'd be gone at least overnight. That meant I wouldn't have to face her for at least another 24 hours. Maybe by the next time I saw her face to face, I would pull myself together and be able to hide the fact that I liked her. If I hadn't seen that love bite, what happened next would never have happened. Since Leslie was out of town, I decided to stop by Starlight, the salon where the group Leslie and I socialized with usually met. I walked in there, looked around, saw a dozen or so familiar people, and suddenly felt like I didn't want to be around anyone at all. I really needed to be alone. I turned around, walked back to the parking lot, and got into my car. I was just pulling out of the parking lot when I felt like I needed to go to the bathroom. I stopped, went in the back door, walked down a short hallway, and ended up in the men's restroom. I was sitting in one of the stalls when someone came in, and I heard him unzip and start brushing his scruff. The door opened, someone else came in, and I heard a voice I recognized as Brad Brown's voice say, "Did you see Talbot come in?" "Yes." "I wonder what happened to him," Chris Chambers said. He looked around and probably realized that every guy he sees is sleeping with his wife. Laughter broke out, and then Brown said, "Do you really think he knows?" "I have no idea, but since she's been screwing around with him herself, I don't see how he couldn't at least suspect something. Maybe he's the kind of guy who enjoys knowing his wife is promiscuous." "Rob, no shit like that. Not Mr. Straight Arrow." "Have you bugged her lately?" 2 days ago when he was in Chicago, he was making his nightly check call and she reached for the phone when I stopped her. I almost pulled off the road to slow down while she was talking to him. I think it pissed her off. I think she likes talking to him while she's at another guy's place." "No, it didn't. She did it once when I was sleeping with her and I asked her that very question, and she looked at me like I was some kind of freak and said no, that she loved him and just wanted to hear the sound of his voice." "And have you liked her lately?" "Not lately, no. I've had no luck when she comes here looking for a playmate." I heard them both buttoning up, and Brown said as they left, "Maybe you should just call her and ask her to organize one of those fake trips out of town." But the closing door interrupted his words. Fake trips out of town? That's where she was right now? Not on a trip to an office that had been broken into, but in a hotel or motel right here in the city while she slept with some jerk? I thought about the men I saw when I entered the lobby. They were all supposed to be friends of mine, but Chambers said everyone I'd seen was dealing with my wife. When I left the house that morning, I thought I was in a tough spot as it was, but it just got worse. Much worse. An unfaithful wife and now also friends stabbing me in the back. I was lying in bed when she called. "Hi, honey. Do you miss me?" I lied to her, telling her I missed her. I wish I was home, sweetie. I miss you when you're not around. I don't sleep well when you're not around either, I thought to myself. I'm only going to be here for one day, baby, and you better save your strength because I'll be more than ready when I get home. At that moment, I realized that I wouldn't be home for her arrival. There would be an emergency at our office in Denver, and I would be on the road. I'll get a motel room and keep an eye on her while she thinks I'm out of town. From what I heard from Brown and Chambers, Leslie was playing while I was on the road. I organized a 3-day trip and saw for myself. The next day, I had a long conversation with my boss. I told him what was going on and that I would have to take a couple of days off. I called Leslie on my cell phone and told her that the system in Denver had failed and I had a plane to catch. She whined that she was so looking forward to seeing me and could I please postpone the trip for at least a day, but of course I told her that was impossible and that I would see her in 3 days. As I hung up the phone, it occurred to me that I couldn't imagine keeping an eye on Leslie when she got home. Will she walk from the airport straight into the living room? Will she call one of her buddies and drive from the airport to his place or meet him at the motel? Would she go to her office first and then meet her lover? Or would she go straight home, unpack, shower, and then go on a date? Or would her current lover meet her at our house? And of course, there was the possibility that she was still in town, that her trip was fake, and she'd just stay where she was, with whoever she was sleeping with. I could go to the airport and look for her car, but I didn't think I could find it among the thousands of cars scattered in 8 different parking lots. And what if she used one of the satellite parking companies that take you to the terminal? I finally decided I could park somewhere nearby to watch the house and wait for her to come home. She pulled up to the house at 5:10, and as she pulled into the garage, I watched her pull a small suitcase out of the trunk, and then the garage door closed. It was another 4 hours before the garage door opened again, and Leslie pulled into the driveway. I gave her a 2-block head start and then followed her. I did everything the way they do on cop shows, always keeping at least 2 cars between us, and wasn't too surprised when she pulled into the parking lot of the Starlight Hotel. She parked, and I saw that she had her cell phone up to her ear. Yep, I thought, going to call her lover and let him know she was waiting for him in the lobby. Almost immediately my cell phone rang. I answered it, and Leslie said, "Hi, honey, it's me." "Are you home yet, or are you still traveling?" You already know the answer to that question. I would ask you what the weather is like in Denver, but you won't know that since you're not in Denver. Why are you following me, Rob? Well, this was it. Confrontation time. There was no point in avoiding it anymore, so I might as well just get it over with. I wanted to try to catch you with one of your legion of lovers. And why would you want to do that? Perverse curiosity, to see which of my many so-called friends will stab me in the back tonight. I'll have something to cry about when I sit at the table in front of the divorce lawyer. I can see we need to talk. Why don't you run home? I'll be there soon, and we'll talk. Run home and you'll be here soon? You're not coming home now? Number I came here to have a drink or two, and I'm going to do just that. Then I'll come in and join you. Not after what you just told me. I need to relax after my trip, get some rest, and I don't want you sitting here trying to take me out. I'll see you at home. She disconnected, got out of the car, and walked into Starlight without even glancing in my direction. Didn't want me to put her to sleep? In less than 48 hours, she'd turned my life upside down, and she didn't want me around to put her down. I put my hand on the doorknob, about to open the door, step out and follow her, but I stopped. I didn't like airing my dirty laundry in public, and if Chris and Brad were telling the truth, and I had no reason to doubt them, the place would be full of my former friends who were her buddies, and I didn't want to embarrass myself in front of them. The last thing I needed right now was a bunch of people I knew laughing at me. I started the car, drove out of the parking lot, and headed home. After driving about 2 blocks, I turned around and drove back. I parked on a side street where I could see Leslie's car, and didn't think she would notice me. I only had to wait 15 minutes before she got out of the salon with Chris Chambers. Apparently, he was finally lucky enough to be in the salon when Leslie came in looking for a playmate. Or unlucky, depending on one's point of view. They got into his car and drove out of the parking lot. I didn't bother trying to chase them because there was only one motel in the direction they were headed. I gave them 5 minutes and then drove to the Holiday Inn Express located at the end of the street. I looked around the parking lot, saw a car parked there, and drove off. The car pulled into the driveway and stopped. The door opened. I stepped out from behind the bushes and hit him in the back with the tire iron with a swing. Chris screamed, falling to his knees, and the second blow hit him in the mouth, and I saw his teeth come out. I kicked him in the chest and he fell on his back and then gave him several hard blows with the tire iron on both knees. He cried and moaned in pain, and I grabbed his hair and brought his face close to mine. "Did you have fun sleeping with my wife tonight? You're supposed to be my friend, asshole, and you stuck a knife in my back. One lie, one untrue answer, and you'll never have sex again in your life. How long have you been sleeping with my wife?" "Don't hit me again," he sobbed. "Then answer the question." 5 or 6 years. "Why?" "Because she wanted it. She came after me." "Why?" "I don't know. I guess it was my turn." "Your turn?" "She was doing everyone else and probably just looked at me and decided I was next." "Who else slept with her that you know of?" "Oh, God, I don't know. Everyone." "Give me the names, Chris. Give me the names of the ones you know for sure." He named a dozen or so names, and they were all supposedly friends. I shook my head in disgust. "Here's the thing, Chris. As far as I'm concerned, we're even. You screw me, and I screw you. You call the cops, and when they're done with me, I'll come after you and use a tire iron to break your elbows, wrists, ankles, and then break every other bone I can. Accept what you got and live with it as the price you had to pay for stabbing me in the back, or accept it and spend the rest of your life in a wheelchair being spoon-fed. Again, the choice is yours." I stepped away from him and left him groaning on the ground next to the car. Leslie was home when I arrived, and it was obvious she was upset because I wasn't there. I was patiently waiting for her. "Where have you been?" "Doing some business." "What kind of business at a time like this?" "Not yours." She looked at me for a few seconds, then shrugged and said, "Okay, Rob, what's this nonsense about divorce lawyers?" "Not nonsense, Leslie. Divorce lawyers are the people you deal with when you find out your wife is an unfaithful pig." She looked at me for a few more seconds, then said, "What's changed, Rob?" "We had a good marriage for 16 years. I've been a great wife to you, and you've been happy, so why do you want to end it now?" "Because I found out about you and what you've been doing behind my back." "So what of it, Rob?" "I've been doing it for all 16 years of our marriage, and it hasn't affected your quality of life one bit. What's more, it lasted even longer than 16 years. I had other lovers the entire time we were together, starting in high school, and it didn't hurt me one bit." "That long?" "Yes, Rob, that long, and again, nothing hurt." "Am I missing so much in the bedroom?" "You're not missing anything, Rob. You're very good in the bedroom. In fact, you're head and shoulders above most of the others." "Then why?" "I like variety, Rob. I just love variety. And I also need a little more than you, or any other man for that matter, can give me. I only do it when I'm out of town or you're out of town, so it doesn't interfere with our time together, and again, Rob, it hasn't hurt us one bit. Right now, our only problem is that you have a bruised ego, but I'll kiss it and things will get better." "I don't think so, Leslie. And it's more than a wounded ego. It's also the humiliation of knowing that all my so-called friends are looking at me and smirking, knowing that they screwed my wife and made me a cuckold. And as for you never doing it except when I'm out of town, I'm in town today and you still went to that motel with Chris, and did it knowing I was watching you to try and catch you doing it. That shows me what you really think of me. You think so little of me that you can say, just run home, Go to a motel and sleep with another man and then come home and tell me that everything is fine and that you just need a little variety and expect me to say, "Yes, dear," and move on. That's not gonna happen. No, Leslie, our marriage was only happy because I didn't realize things. But I wasn't looking for them then. I thought I had a perfect marriage and a loving wife, but I didn't. And everyone knew it but me. You have all that, Rob. We have a perfect marriage and you have a loving wife. Maybe by your definition, Leslie, but not by mine. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to get ready. Why? What are you going to do? I'm going to dump your sorry ass, get a lawyer, and get on with my life. Don't be stupid, Rob. What are you going to do if I'm not around to guide you? If you won't be around to guide me. Think about it, Rob. All the major decisions were made by me. Even in high school, I was the one who guided you through life. You need me, Rob. Do you really believe that? Of course I believe it because it's true. If you believe it, really believe it, it will change everything. You'll look for other men, not because you like variety, but because you need someone you think is a man, and you'll look for someone you think is manly because you think I'm not. No real man would let a woman run his life for him, would he? Any man who lets a woman do his thinking for him must be some kind of wuss, right? Let me tell you something, you cheating harlot. The only thing I can commend you for is that you moved me from a career as a business manager to a career as a computer scientist. All of your other major decisions involved things I didn't care enough to get involved in and didn't care about. In my mind, if you wanted them, you could have them. It may have escaped you, but I've made tremendous progress in my career. You weren't in the office when I was making decisions about what systems to use and how to set up the company's IT network. You weren't leaning over my shoulder, guiding me as I went to clients and solved their problems. I did it on my own, without any help from you. But here's a news flash, Leslie. Even if I failed without your help, I'd still be better off than living with a pig in round heels. You don't care that I love you? You don't love me, Leslie, and now I'm not sure you even did. You like to think you controlled me, that I was your puppet. Well, I just cut the strings, and you're going to have to find someone else to dance with while you pull the strings. I packed up enough stuff to last me a few days and left the house. I returned 2 days later when Leslie was at work and took everything I wanted from the house. During that same 2-day period, on a dark night, Brad Brown was attacked right outside his house and had both knees smashed with something like a tire iron, baseball bat, or some other heavy tool. The attacker was wearing a mask and didn't utter a word while he was beating Brown. Police are still investigating. When I told my supervisor that I needed a leave of absence to deal with personal problems, I also told him what those problems were and asked if he could arrange a transfer for me. I needed to get out of town away from all my so-called friends. I had gotten the names of some of the people who had slept with Leslie from Chris, and I would get to them eventually, but I didn't have the names of all the people who had the bitch, and I didn't want to spend the rest of my life wondering if he was one of them every time I talked to someone I knew. My boss arranged for me to move to our Kansas City office, and I did. I never contacted a lawyer about the divorce. I would have let Leslie do it and pay for it, if she could. I cleared all our accounts the day I left town. The only way to get half of it back is for her to divorce me, and then, of course, we would have to sell the house she just has to have. I checked myself for sexually transmitted diseases and tripled the insurance policy on Leslie's life. Every night before I go to bed, I pray that Leslie will be hit by a bus or struck by lightning, even though I know it's unlikely to happen. Leslie has found out where I am and calls me once a week to ask if I'm done with my stupid sit-ins and ready to go home where I belong. And every week she gets the same answer, "Fuck you," and hangs up. Leslie shows no signs that she is going to get a divorce, and I may have to reconsider my position on letting her do it so she has to pay for it. I met some very nice ladies in Kansas City, and I may just need to become single again.